It all happened in the autumn of that year. The master's son had just been married. The bride was 19, 2 years older than the bridegroom. The master had always been resentful of his family's low status and had coveted, more than anything else, a daughter-in-law with a noble lineage. But noble families do not let go of their daughters so easily. As a result, he had all but bought the daughter of a certain fallen aristocrat from a southern village. He cajoled the aristocrat's widow into giving up her only daughter, then hurried to get the wedding ceremony over with lest the widow should change her mind. He spent 30,000 nyang, a lot of money in those days, on the wedding and arranged to send his son's mother-in-law a monthly allowance of 2,500 nyang, supposedly in exchange for her continuing to do all her daughter's sewing and laundry. The bride's family had been moderately well off till her father's death, and since she had been brought up with great care, she was well educated, having been taught all that could be learned in an old-fashioned household and having read all that was proper for a bride. There was no hint of any dark shadow to be seen in her person or manners. As soon as the bride moved in, people began to find fault with the bridegroom. Compared with his bride, he's a crow next to a peacock. Still has no self-control. He'll pay second fiddle to his wife. She deserves better than a bridegroom like him. There were the kinds of things that gossip-mongering wives said when they gathered together. One woman who liked to poke her nose into other people's business even stopped the son once and said, as if reprimanding him, "Well, you should know better now that you're an adult. How can you keep a wife and still behave like you do? Aren't you ashamed of entering her room?" On such occasions, the son's heart would become filled with animosity toward the speaker. Thinking that they were deliberately trying to humiliate him, he'd decline to greet or even address them the next time their paths crossed. "You're an adult now. You're old enough to know better by now. Aren't you ashamed in front of your wife?" His aunt scolded him like this whenever she dropped in. But instead of feeling ashamed at such reproaches, the nephew grew more resentful of his wife for having placed him in such an awkward position. "What's a wife good for? All this trouble started after that wench came." A few days after the wedding, he stopped visiting his wife's room. The household was turned upside down as a result. The family even tried to push him into the bridal chamber as if they were breeding a pig or a horse, but to no avail. Every time such a circus occurred, the newlywed husband picked up whatever he could lay his hands on and swung it around indiscriminately. Once he hit his maternal cousin in the forehead, cutting her badly. The family, at a loss about what to do, handed the matter over to the father, but that was no use either, and caused only more turmoil. Upon being dismissed after a long sermon from his father, the son went to his wife's room and, without warning, grabbed her hair and threw her out into the corridor. "You bitch, go back to your home," he yelled. "I don't even want to look at you. Don't ever show up here again." If a meal was served, the table would end up somersaulting in the middle of the yard, and if new clothes were brought in, they'd be dumped into a trash bin. And so, from the time of the wedding onward, the bride cried day and night over her misfortune. She was beaten for the wickedness of her weeping, and struck for the dim-wittedness of her silence. Not a day of peace passed in the house. Among those who witnessed her daily misery, one person in particular was filled with dark forebodings, namely Samnyong the mute. He could not understand for all the world how anyone could beat such an angelic woman, someone so beautiful, so affectionate, and so modest that he himself would never have dared to lay a finger on. It made no sense to abuse a lady so pleasing to the eye and too scared to ever be touched. As for himself, he deserved nothing more than to be thrashed like a dog or a pig by the young master. Yet it appalled him to no end to watch his mistress, who was as far above him as an angel over a beast, receive the same blows. The mute even worried that his young master would incur divine retribution. On one moonlit night, when all was silent and forlorn, stars flickering here and there, the half-moon hanging lucid in the air, and the world as crystal clear, as if purified with mercury, Samnyong lay stretched out on a straw mattress, lost in thought, his hand stroking the back of Blackie the dog, and his eyes gazing up at the sky. When he thought of his new mistress, images of the moon and stars came to mind. Yet she seemed more graceful than the moon and purer than the stars. She had a heart more beautiful and tender than the silvery moonlight, which washed everything clean. It was as if she were the moon or a star come down to earth, or as if she could metamorphose into the moon or a star by merely reaching up to the sky. Samnyong recalled how her eyes glistened with pity whenever the young master bade him, though she did not dare speak out. Patting Blackie's soft fur with his hand, Samnyong felt the warmth fill his heart. The dog licked his hand and wagged its tail, innocently believing that the mute's gentle caresses were meant for it alone. Samnyong's heart was filled with compassion for his mistress, and with the resolve that he would gladly give his life for her. These sentiments arose as instinctively within him as water fills the mouth of a hungry man at the scent of food.